Well, I guess I'll start. Bob Simmons from this meeting. Welcome to Salem Semi-Septennial. That's what I'm calling it. It's our 350th birthday. New Salem, as Fenwick called it, was founded 350 years ago. He had a dream to found this colony, a Quaker colony. Here's his story. History doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes. So my question to you is, was Fenwick illegal? Is that something that we talk about today? Now, interrupt me with any questions or corrections, because, I can't promise everything here is going to be right here, if you know something better. Let's start at 1649. Fenwick was a major in the Parliamentary Army. That's the year they won the English Civil War, executed the king. He was... As the time was where there were lots of different religions, like the Quakers were founded about this time too, he belonged to an independent, extremist Puritan religion called the Fifth Monarchy Men that was looking toward the imminent return, second coming of Jesus. Going up to 1660s, Fenwick becomes a Quaker. He becomes widowed and marries a second time. But interestingly, his wife never comes to America with him, and he never returns to England. He loved Salem. There's no place better for him to be than here. So he stayed. Moving to 1664, the area that we're in from New York to Delaware was New Netherland, and that was conquered by the English. It connects their New England territory with their Maryland and Virginia territory. And the middle of that middle area ended up being given to Carteret and Berkeley. That's the area we're in, between the Hudson and the Delaware. Carteret had protected the new King Charles II and his brother, the Duke of York, the future King James II, during the English Civil War. And he was repaying them for the favor. Carteret was from the island of Jersey, and so he named his land New Jersey. There was a straight line drawn through this wilderness area from Little Egg Harbor to Delaware Water Gap, to split it into east and west, but there was really no difference in that because Berkeley did nothing with his land. It just stayed wilderness the whole time that he owned it. In 1672, Fox traveled through this area. He preached in Virginia, and he went all the way up to Rhode Island to preach to Englishmen that were here. So he traveled through this area too on his way, and he'd find this was the most wilderness area of his whole travels. There would be no kind of ferry service around here where there would be other places. In his journal, he says, "Our party got over the river Delaware, not without great danger of some of our lives." So I guess I see him crossing in a canoe. "Then we had that wilderness country to pass through, since called West Jersey." It wasn't really considered West Jersey then, it was just the wilderness. He saw the potential of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So I suppose it would be from Fox's writings about that Fenwick would be inspired to try to make use of this wilderness. (1674). Berkeley sells West Jersey, his portion, to Fenwick and Billinge for £1,000 and 40 beaver skins a year. So I wonder how long that went on that he gave the 40 beaver skins, but that was probably the easy part of the price. The £1,000 wasn't so easy, and he had to have a partner, Billinge. It wasn't long before they had a falling out. You'll see in this, Fenwick had fallings out with a lot of people. After all, Fenwick had the dream to start the colony, and Billinge, he was just an investor. He thought that he should be the one in charge. But they both can decide on letting William Penn be an arbitrator between their claims. So he does that, and he gives Fenwick a small portion, the Salem 10th that we're in now. It's basically Salem and Cumberland counties. And Billinge gets the rest of West Jersey. This is really when West Jersey came into existence, because we're going to do something with it now. Fenwick's unhappy with all of this. He seemed to be greedy. It seemed that he'd had enough land, but he wanted it all. Penn writes him letters about this, saying there's no need to be greedy. He says, for instance, your grandchildren will be dead before you would be able to use all the land that you do have. There's plenty of land as it is. Funny, a little after this, it's not anything that Penn would know was going to happen, but Billinge goes bankrupt and he needs to sell West Jersey, and Penn buys it. Penn and his partners. Fenwick, meanwhile, is planning to start his colony of New Salem, and he still needs money. He gets some more investors. Eldridge and Warner, some Quakers in England, to help him out. Governor Nichols and the Duke of York, meanwhile, do not recognize that Berkeley had the right to sell it to Fenwick in the first place. They're making trouble now, saying that he's illegal, or he's trying to do an illegal colony. But at any rate, 1675, Fenwick's ready to come on over here. He stops at Fort Elfsburg first, 3 miles down the river from here. Fort Elfsburg was still in existence, just an old Swedish fort. was maybe 30 years old then. Just something abandoned, but it was a place they could stop. And the next day, September 24, by the new Gregorian calendar, he moves on up to New Salem, as he calls it. He makes a proclamation of religious liberty to all. He confirms the land titles of the Swedes and the Finns that are already here. So he's showing good judgment in that. Next, I want to talk about a person called Papa Utut. He seemed to be a Dutchman from Newcastle. I don't know if anybody knows the right way to pronounce this. I don't know, but I read this. He ended up being a valuable person for Fenwick because he could speak the Lenni Lenape language. It was apparently about 2 weeks after Fenwick landed that he held council with the Indians. The type of thing that we like to show. You can't see this, but this is a picture of our 300th anniversary with Fenwick meeting the Indians. And that's what we're going to celebrate, what the city will celebrate here in October. Well, and with his counsel with the Indian chiefs, he purchased their land, and the Indians just maintained the right for trapping, fishing, and cutting wood. It happened in Fenwick's colony that no European ever killed an Indian, and no Indian ever killed a European. A happy outcome. So now that he was here, Fenwick was arrested by the governor of New York for not being allowed to start a new colony there. He was taken to New York, and I don't know, for some reason, he's not held for very long. I'm not sure why, but he's soon released. Governor Andros of New York named commissioners to hold court at Fort Elfsburg. Newcastle was allied with New York in all this. So instead of just having a government in Newcastle, they decided to have it right under Fenwick's nose, right in this abandoned Fort Elfsburg. So that was supposed to be the official government here. And Fenwick was just illegal, according to them. Trustees of West Jersey, in the meantime, including Penn, they acted as if Salem wasn't here, as they planned to found Burlington, the first Quaker settlement on the Delaware River. I note what the Faith and Practice says about Salem. It shows the confusion of this. Quakers settled in 1675 near the present city of Burlington, New Jersey. So they mix the two things. And that's the official word there. 1675 is our year, but Burlington is the official first. Okay. So it's questionable. But we know Burlington was only founded in 1677. And the thing is, the founding of that made New York's claim weaker. But they still didn't give up. But note, Burlington got a government pretty much right away, and Salem never had a government. It was just Fenwick. He's the boss. In 1678, we notice that Fenwick is visited by members of Salem Meeting for non-attendance. So, are you still a Quaker? And interesting about that, one of his investors, remember I told you about investors that Fenwick got just before he came over. An investor pays a visit to Fenwick in Salem, and when may we expect payment? When may we expect payment? I mean, that's what he's really there for. One of his investors just before, Eldridge and Warner, before he came over on the Griffin. And Fenwick's thinking, I'm doing a great work here, and you're just thinking about money. And he physically beat the guy. So, was he a good Quaker? The investor didn't have any recourse. I mean, Fenwick was the law here, and he just had to go away unsatisfied. I don't know what would happen eventually, but that's what happened then. In 1680, finally, New York drops its claim to West Jersey. After a remonstrance, a legal maneuver, probably by pen. So finally, they're going to have clear title to West Jersey, that's going to be a legal colony. And that probably didn't hurt Penn either, as he wants to be legal in his Pennsylvania that he's about to found. Samuel and Ann, 1681. Let's go to Samuel and Ann Nicholson deed 16 acres to Salem Monthly Meeting. So it was 6 years before there was a Salem meeting house. They just were meeting in homes before this. The meeting house wasn't much. It was just a house of hewn logs with a dirt floor east of the oak tree. So by 1698, Salem Meeting was making plans for a brick building, something better. It wasn't this building, though. It was still another one that was going to still be by the oak. (1682). Still no government in Salem, but Fenwick sells to Penn. I don't know why, but Salem now becomes part of West Jersey. It's part of the government meeting in Burlington. And in 1683, he dies. So we see with Fenwick, he had troubles with all of these different people through his stay here. Bill Inge, his initial partner. All the people of New York who didn't accept him. And then his investors who helped him finance New Salem. So, I leave it up to you. Was he illegal? Maybe he wasn't a good Quaker, but he He was Salem. He loved Salem. I think that's the end of my presentation.
How old was he when he died?
65. A ripe old age.
Now I understand there's confusion about where he's actually buried.
Yeah,
It's out
I'm wondering
Mannington
about
somewhere.
that. It's in Mannington, huh?
And they have a monument there on 45, but they're not sure if that's the actual site.
Yeah, they can say he's buried somewhere near here, huh?
Right.
That's probably the best they can do. Yeah.
And he came over with his...
Oh, I guess I didn't mention that. Yeah. Like I say, his wife didn't come. Thanks for reminding me there. He came with 3 daughters and 2 sons-in-law. So they were all interested in being here too. But I suppose that you didn't have the name Fenwick going on after this.
Yeah, you do wonder what happened that we don't have Fenwicks running around Salem anymore.
Yeah.
And even his house no longer exists.
Well, Elfsburg doesn't exist anymore. But it was there.
And the location's a little bit
Yeah, I mean,
lost.
after all, things that are so long ago. Yeah.
Bob?
Yes.
I don't know the year on the concessions and agreements, but although it wasn't people in government, it was a set of guidelines that Fenwick's colony, I think, were practicing from the beginning. And that was considered to be the template for the later Bill of Rights.
Oh.
Fenwick's guideline, huh?
Yeah, they were called the concessions and agreements.
Right.
And there's actually a curriculum that was put out by the state of New Jersey for like middle school kids on
So maybe that's a good
Fenwick's
direction.
concessions and agreements.
But he didn't actually have anybody in the government except for himself, right?
Right. But the concessions and agreements had some pretty amazing things in it, like that if a crime was committed by an Indian, the jury should be made up of, I think, 6 Indians and 6 Europeans.
Oh, how about that? That's an important addition.
What were the others?
I'm not sure, but I think the most important one was that religions would be tolerated, which was in distinct contrast to what was going on in the Puritan world to the north and in the Royalist world to the south.
And yet Maryland
It's one of the reasons there were some Baptists apparently on that vessel that arrived. And so from the very beginning, instead of creating a religious fiefdom, it was a place for all to worship as they chose, protected by the concessions and agreements, which William Penn helped draft in England.
So Fenwick came over with those concessions and agreements.
Well, that's what I'm not sure of. I'll do an online search if I can. Hold on.
While Lisa's looking up something, I'm just curious, where did Fenwick actually come from in England?
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to have to look that up also.
Yeah. One of his daughters married a black man. Where did he come from? The black man.
There was one black man in the colony. It's true.
Had he come over with Fenwick?
No.
He lived here before. He was part of the Indian community.
You know, black man could have meant, I don't know, just a different skin color, even. But there is some controversy that that's true or not true, because apparently, how did that go, Bob?
He disinherited her. Well, that's the rumor. That he disinherited her for because of a black man.
So they established a community which became Ghoultown.
But again, that's not substantiated, and there's some evidence that
that
it's
could
just
have
a
been
rumor and that it's not true at all.
Yeah, you can see that the nature of Fenwick. He might have been just upset about his daughter for something too.
It's certainly
Just like a
very
lot of
widely
people.
held as true within Ghoultown and in terms of the historians of Ghoultown who have told the tale.
That Ghoultown really started right with Fenwick's daughter.
Yes.
Is that what they say? Okay, huh?
You know, you see it all over the place, but yes, I've also read the historians that contradict it and think that his term black man could have been a person with a black cloud over them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a new book about Ghoultown out that claims that they had 2 children together. And there's all kinds of folklore through the ages, talking about the Quakers coming with baskets of goodies. And there has to be some kind of truth in something that has persisted like that. But it's very difficult to know.
In the long run, what does it really matter?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
it's
right.
kind of, it
That's
has
why I
to
didn't
be
mention it.
something that makes us look very good over there.
Now Fenwick did come over with several servants.
Yes, one of whom later laid out the groundwork for Greenwich. Indentured servants who really were like people that didn't have money and just got a good gig going to get over here. And Mark Reed ended up, you know, getting land and, you know, as part of the whole arrangement that he had, and ended up, you know, really quite well off with, as a property holder and a leading individual first in Greenwich and then in Fairfield.
Sorry about that chime. I did that again. Normally we don't have that, but now it's whenever I mess up the clock there.
Here's what it says about the concessions and agreements. The concessions and agreements of West Jersey was a foundational document drafted in 1676 and signed in 1677 that outlined the governmental framework and fundamental laws of the West Jersey colony in North America. Of course, that's AI. So I don't know if it was Salem. I don't really quite understand. I thought Salem was always considered to be part of West Jersey, so I'm not exactly sure about the timeline on this now.
What do you mean AI?
What was that, sorry?
AI summary.
Yes, that's the AI summary.
Artificial
Okay,
intelligence.
huh? That's funny.
But if the date's 1676, right, then he did not come over with that. That he
No,
must have drafted it
it-
here.
Crafted back and forth, and largely by William Penn, and maybe some of the investors, and, you know, it was drafted in 1676, so it wasn't until they got over there without any government that the need for this became clear.
Yes.
But it's interesting what you say about that Burlington kind of acted like Salem didn't exist, since that was later picked up by Pennsylvania. Salem.
I think coloring this background was the weighty Quakers in England were thinking about buying this land, and they were getting their funds together when Fenwick and his partner swooped in and bought the land, which did not make him friends with all those other Quakers. So they kept putting pressure on him, and they even accused him of being a criminal because they said he didn't have the money. So who was he fronting for? And he wouldn't admit that he was fronting for anybody. So that's why they were able to push through. Well, let's talk about this. And that's why Penn was able to be the man in charge during these discussions. And they took 9/10 of it for themselves and left him 1/10 because they're Quakers. They couldn't have taken it all. So they let him have 1/10. They took the rest, which was Burlington. And then they said, okay, now we're starting from scratch. Because Salem, that just belongs to him. And he may be a Quaker, but it doesn't mean that this is Quaker territory. Burlington, the other 9/10 are the Quaker area. And that's where you see the government and all that, and even when Penn gets Pennsylvania, they're still tight. But the Salem and Cumberland are never really part of it, or, you know, they don't consider us part of it. We're the cousins that are out in the country.
The black sheep.
The black sheep, yes.
They did used to travel between Burlington and Salem for Quaker gatherings, Quaker meetings.
Well, they had, I mean, again, they're Quakers, so they can't, you know, not act friendly.
Was there ever any evidence discovered that he was fronting for someone?
Excuse me?
Was there ever any evidence discovered that he was fronting for someone? Like, did he actually have the money, do you know? Or?
Was he fronting for anybody?
Well,
We had investors.
He always had to have somebody else.
they were able to take 9/10 of it, so somebody came up with some proof. Or maybe not, who knows?
Well, the fact remains that we are here, and we have this meeting house that was built to accommodate many Quakers when they got together.
In addition, Lenape are still regionally present.
Right.
It's interesting in the history books from the Historical Society that I read to get this presentation, they would say that the Indians are gone. That's what the history books say. They say they all went to New York.
Therefore, the importance
we
and
know
unity
that's
of
not
having
true.
Salem Quarter Indian Affairs Committee, it's necessary. The voice is still not present, and we mimic the voice of the Lenape leadership coming out of hiding.
It wasn't until 1976, if I'm not wrong, Sandra, that the tribe reformed, that Mark Gould made the decision to work with others and bring the tribe back to life, formally.
So what's the population? Do you know?
Their membership, I think, is something in the 3,000. What's the membership of Quakers in Salem Quarter? You think we hit 3,000?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I wish.
Maybe on the books.
Well, if there are no other questions, we could probably take a bathroom break, and I know there are good pastries in the annex at last, so please help yourselves.
Return here at 10:30.
Yes. So we have 20 minutes, roughly.
Wonderful
Thank you.
pastries in the annex.
And we thank Bob for his research.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Dana.